Thank you. Okay. Hi, everybody, and welcome to Transferable Skill Sets. My name is Nikia Pinnell. I'm the Workability 4 coordinator here at CSULB. I am very happy to be hosting and bringing forth some great minds to talk about something that's really important and something that I feel like we all need verbiage and we need just some language for. So we do have some of our experts here, and let me get the presentation started. And like I said, this will be put on YouTube, so you can access this later if you want to watch it again. And I will be emailing slides as well as a PDF to everybody. And so you will have access to that in your email. Okay, so we're going to kick it off, transferable skills. So this is the inspiration for this. I had read this book recently. It is called Designing Your Life. They have a series of books, and I thought to myself, wow, what a great way to put words to skills that we already have. It is called Designing Your Life. It is by Bill Burnett and Dave Evans. I have a resource page below that links everything. So basically, this is learn how to take your current skills and apply them into the career you have been working towards. We will cover resume points, inspiration, empowerment, majors, and self-advocacy. I'm happy to have Rosa Trujillo, Jessica Wood, and Austin Soto here, as well as Amanda Torres, our workability specialist. And you may recognize some of these faces as well. If this is for a class assignment and you need verification, please take notes on the presentation, email your notes to the cdc.events@csulb.edu. The subject line will be class assignment, and make sure to include your name, class, and instructor in the email. So if you need to screenshot this, I'll give you a moment. Okay. So this will be participatory. We have a couple things in there. So in the chat, please add, if this pertains to you, it's up to you, your degree, maybe one that you're pursuing or that you earned, your majors, maybe a first job or a club or an internship or volunteer work that you're in or have had, like one of your first ones. Another one would be like a job you would like to have. Or a company or industry you want to be with. Perhaps you really want to be with Disney, or perhaps you really want to be with Netflix, or even just like a mom and pop place. Add a skill you have or would like to improve or learn. Bonus, if you want, add an odd job. Maybe you're a crafter, pet, or house or babysitter, or Uber driver, or Postmates, or you're freelance. I like to get to know who our audience is. And I will be making sure I'm watching the chat and making sure what I'll be doing is taking any questions that you have throughout the presentation and holding those until the end in case they're answered. Amanda, can you be so, okay, actually, no, you're fine, Amanda. All right, so what I'm seeing is child development, MFT, geography, BA, psychology, fanfic writer, food science, pursuing holistic nursing, physics, options and material science, communication studies, sociology. Wow, we have a really interesting group. Computer tech, computer engineering, wanting to work in the tech industry, majoring in child development and family studies, avid tutor, middle school, and intern for middle school counselor. This is great. And feel free to direct message me or the whole chat. It's up to you. We have some really, really varied attendees. This is wonderful. Environmental science and policy, career in government, excellent. Wonderful, great. And if you're still typing, that is fine. I will be watching that, but we are going to move on. Okay. So a little bit about me. I'm not going to be speaking a lot. I am your host. My name is Nikia Pinnell. So basically, I have a BA in English and Comparative Literatures with minors in Education and Spanish. I went to UC Santa Barbara. This is my thesis. And then later on, about 8 years after, I pursued my master's in English Literature and Composition at Chapman University here in Orange. I also have a educational therapist certification from UC Riverside that I pursued on my own very recently within the last 2 years. I've had a lot of jobs. The crux of this is to kind of learn where we've all come from and how you can take these skills and go from there. I've had a lot of jobs. My first one was a stable hand. I worked with horses, helped clean up stables and things like that. And you know, all the way from still doing some wedding catering, from working at Trader Joe's for 10 years, working as a tutor for a very long time, and currently my position is a workability coordinator here at CSULB. But yeah, that's something I just wanted to show you, is that I do have a wider range, array of skills and jobs and things like that. And our presenters will be sharing that as well. Okay, the first person we're going to introduce is Rosa Trujillo.
All right, hello everyone. So a little bit about my background and work experience. So this is the theme about transferable skills. So I think showcasing all our like stories and where we've come from is a really great kind of tie to all of this as a theme for our presentation. So I was born, was actually raised in Orange County. So I currently live in Irvine. Very similar to Nikia, English major. And so I've also did like a thesis when I was an undergrad. I did the LG form, but I also pursued my 2 degrees, which was my master's in English literature at Long Beach, and then also my counseling degree also at Cal State Long Beach. And during that time, I did pursue being president of the student org in grad school. I didn't do it in my undergrad, but I did pursue it in my graduate years. And then for jobs, I kind of stayed within the same industry. So while I did kind of do different, maybe a slightly different job functions between like teaching and then also just being in the career services field, I still kind of stayed within the education space. And then currently I'm the Assistant Director of Career Education and Counseling for our center. But today I'm really excited to kind of talk about what are transferable skills. That's like my topic I'll be sharing today. And in reference to like, especially like your resume and cover letter, so we can go on to our next slide here. So for folks in the room that might be curious about like, what is a transferable skill? Why is this important? And the reality is that a lot of our students oftentimes do not pursue certain opportunities because they feel that they don't have direct experience. So in the Career Development Center, we highly emphasize that you are developing transferable skills, whether it's in a volunteer position, whether it's in your classes, whether it's like in internships, jobs, like it doesn't matter, but we are all developing transferable skills. So they're usually called portable skills because you can bring them from whatever space you've learned it from. So it doesn't have to be just in a job. It can literally be in your own major. You can apply these general skills again to various work environments. And so this is where a lot of folks actually pivot into different industries and job functions. So we do consider these lifelong skills, and it can be applied again to almost any job opportunity. And we did provide a link to an article from Forage, which is a tool that you have access to, but they have really great kind of like transferable skill definitions and examples. So highly encourage for all of you when you get that email to click on it and read the article. But I'm going to give you some examples based on NACE. So we'll go on to our next slide. So what are some transferable skills that employers are seeking? So these are skills that you're currently developing that are actually sought by in terms of our employers. So let's go to the first critical, skill, which is communication. So for a lot of you, if you're like Rosa, I've never had a job in my life. I am just doing projects in the classroom. I'm maybe doing like presentations in the classroom, like for maybe like a final project. This is a high skill that a lot of employers are looking for. So some things that you want to kind of think about as you're probably translating a lot of the things you've done into these transferable skills is, have I answered questions as a volunteer? Have I actively listened to a classmate and maybe presented some of the information that they gave me into like a bigger audience, like my whole class? Are there ways where I've like communicated in a very caring manner? Maybe if you worked in retail, or maybe you're a babysitter and you're just very empathetic to parents and you communicate that. So these are all examples. And again, does not have to be necessarily from an internship or a job. It could literally be from the classroom. But let's jump into our next transferable skill that is also highly recommended by our employers. Here we go, critical thinking. So all of us, does not matter your major, does not matter your industry, your job function, we have all engaged in critical thinking. And so what is critical thinking? It's understanding the situational context and having a logical analysis of the relevant information in front of you. So things like, for example, if let's say your classmates can't agree upon a day or time and you're looking at a chat that's like going back and forth, maybe you're the person that kind of puts it all together and says, you know what, we just all need to go on Poll Everywhere and just like tell everybody to put some suggested times, right? It could also be that when you're looking at your projects, like for class, you're kind of looking through and thinking about what is the information that I need? Are there questions that I have? Is there, you know, another question I want to ask in the classroom? I want to ask like with my professors. It could also be just participating and taking action in like getting that information. Maybe there's things that you're analyzing in the information in front of you that is missing. So we've all done this, whether again, it's like volunteer work, it's in your major, whether it's also in an internship or job you've had, we've all engaged in critical thinking. And let's go into our last, but not, you know, the only listed critical skills that employers are looking for. But technology, we have all engaged in technology. Simply us being in the Zoom room is engaging with technology and developing that skill. So it's understanding different technologies. So maybe if you are a computer science major, that could mean software like C++ or Java. It could also be like for folks that are communication majors that have probably dabbled into social media. It could even be for folks that are in education or government sectors using platforms that kind of store client information or personal information. So these are all examples of just technology you have engaged with. So if you're a student, you've engaged with Zoom, you've engaged with a platform like Beachboard or Canvas. Using social media, you have had and dabbled in technology. So regardless if you've had a job, an internship opportunity, we've all engaged in these skills. And that's what we want to really sell with you today, that you do have these transferable skills, but oftentimes it's hard to even identify and match them because we often think you need to have the direct experience in order for you to apply to an opportunity or to be competitive in an opportunity. And that's not necessarily the case. But with that said, we're going to go on to our next slide and we're going to do exactly that. How do I identify and match my skills? So we'll go on to the next slide to get a little bit more info on that. So the first steps, and I do, because very much like Nikia, I have a literature background, so I'm going to tell you through the perspective as a writer. When you are trying to identify and match your transferable skill, the first thing you want to do is just brainstorm what is it that you have done. So that might mean that you have to write down things like, you know, I've helped my professor with the lab work by emailing them the results. Maybe you've learned how to use Adobe software to create animated characters for a class project. So you want to start to think, okay, what are the skills? What are the things that I have done in the past? Then you want to match it with a transferable skill. And you can go with the ones we shared today. There's obviously more, and we'll be giving out actually a handout that has NACE's like a top not transferable skills, but top wanted skills from employers that are transferable. So you can read the definitions, you can read examples and how to even improve in those areas. But the next step really would be to kind of take a look at your task and then kind of see what kind of where does it fit in terms of a transferable skill? So an example of that would be like, maybe helping your professor and emailing the lab work is a lot of detail orientation. Maybe you had to look at an Excel sheet and make sure that there was no errors. Learning how to use an Adobe software, you're like, I've engaged in technology. So that's like a technology transferable skill, but also it looks like I'm a learner too. Like I'm willing to learn and take up a new skill like a software in order to create characters for my class project. So let's go on to our next slide. We are going to play a little bit of a matching game. So what I want you all to do is to get ready on the chat feature. I want to open up your chat and we're going to actually try and match the task to the skill. So we're going to jump into our first kind of list of tasks. So if we can go on to the next slide. There we go. So let's say, for example, I'm a student and you're the career counselor and your job is to help me match. So I'm describing to you that in this previous job or my past volunteer experiences, I've helped clean areas around the store. I've helped organize things that are out of place in my store. I left detailed notes to my supervisor about the inventory items. What would you say is a skill that matches all the things that I'm describing to you? Is it A, organization? Is it B, leadership? Or is it C, technology? All right. All right. And I already see a couple of folks kind of turning in A, yes. All right. And definitely feel free if you still want to kind of chime in as we're kind of going through this matching process. But if we can go on to the next slide to see the answer, what are we matching? And yes, it's organization. So for those of you, as you're kind of engaging with these questions and looking at these tasks, this is exactly the type of thing you're going to be doing for your own resume. Looking at the task that you've done and then also trying to link it to a transferable skill. So let's go on to the next one. So again, I'm another student and I'm telling you, hey, I've answered questions from customers about specials of the day. I've communicated with other servers about specific orders. I've placed orders in and speak with cooks to ensure that the ticket order is heard. So are we doing A, critical thinking? Are we doing B, technology? Are we doing C, communication? All right, and I'm already seeing y'all are really quick. So I'm seeing the letter C, and I do see a couple of folks. Yeah, a lot of you are putting C. So let's go on and we'll see what was the match. And yes, you are all correct. It is communication. Let's do one more so we can kind of ingrain this skill together. So again, as a student, I'm letting you know I use C++ to code for class projects. I checked for bugs by watching YouTube videos on how to detect them. And I use LinkedIn Learning to better understand how to use Excel for class projects. Am I using A, technology as a transferable skill, B, equity and inclusion as a transferable skill, or C, leadership as a transferable skill? And I am seeing A, and let's see if that is correct. Let's jump into the last matching. And that is absolutely correct. You are matching with technology. So we'll go on to our next slide. This is exactly what you want to do. You kind of want to start thinking about how do I start matching what I've done to the transferable skill. So this is just a visualization of what you all did. But the next step is, well, how do I write it? So I usually tell students highlight maybe some key terms that you have from your task and start incorporating it with associated skill terms. So you used YouTube, that's directly linked to the term technology. If you answered questions, it's directly linked to things like communicated, communication, spoke with, right? So you want to start using key terms of that transferable skill or associated terms from that transferable skill. We'll go on to the next slide. And again, don't worry, if you feel like it's going a little too fast, you'll have this on our YouTube channel. Then also we'll be sending more information and examples of this via email. So for those of you who are like, Rosa, how do I like showcase this. What does this look like in a resume? Here are a couple of examples of resumes that showcase transferable skills. So you'll see things like being a barista, being a volunteer. I've highlighted key terms that kind of link back to those critical skills, those transferable skills, things like professionalism, teamwork, detail orientation, listening, so a lot of communication skills. And we'll jump to the next slide so we can see a couple more. We see here for store clerk. So yes, there is no opportunity that does not have a transferable skill. So I wanted to give you just a sample of all of these so you can kind of see like, yeah, like I should be doing this type of highlighting. Where am I using these transferable skills? And so you also see at the very bottom an example of a class project, because if you haven't yet engaged with a volunteer opportunity, a work opportunity, there's a lot of places you can pick a lot of these skills up, and one of them is actually in the classroom. But you'll see that we've also highlighted a couple of key terms to look at those transferable skills. And then the next slide that I have for you is, obviously this is a lot of hard work. So if you are like Rosa, I really want to sit down with you, or I want to sit down with a counselor to talk about my transferable skills. Maybe I need to sit down and just explain to you what I did so I can start thinking about this in a transferable skills kind of way. You definitely have our contact information. You can always do an appointment through Beach Connect. If you're a student, if you're an alumni, you can definitely call our office. You have our services 1 year for free after graduation. But more to come. I will still be in the chat. So if you have specific questions, feel free to engage with me by messaging me to Rosa Trujillo via Zoom. But thank you all for engaging and listening to this portion, and I'll hand it back off to Nakia.
Thank you, Rosa. Let me unpin you here. Okay, so I do see a question in the chat. I will save that for the end. Great question, by the way. So I'll save that for the end. Oh, great. And then just let's throw in a reaction or a thank you for Rosa. All right. Our next person is Austin Soto.
Hello, everybody. So my name is Austin Soto. As Nakia mentioned, I use he, him pronouns. I'm an accommodations and retention counselor with the Bob Murphy Access Center. So this is just going to be a brief summary of myself. Born and raised in Southern California, went to CSULB, Cal State Long Beach here. So I'm alumni from there with a degree in film and electronic arts. So the FEA program with specification and focus on theory and practice of cinema and production management and digital arts. And then I also had a minor in psychology. So that is my educational history. And my previous jobs held. I've worked in food service. I started my first job at Jamba Juice, making some smoothies. And sorry, the camera's turned off. Making some smoothies. I've worked in retail with Active Ride Shop and at Best Buy. I've done some freelance work as a video editor and some set sound on production sets, recording sound for different filming projects. I've worked in specialty assembly, so assembling specific parts for manufacturing. And then, of course, in higher education here at Cal State Long Beach. I started my work in higher education as a student assistant with the Accessible Instructional Materials Center as an alternative media editor, a sub-program of the Bob Murphy Access Center. So that's where I first started here. I was working here as a student, kind of building my knowledge and working in disability services, had no prior experience working in that field, and grew to enjoy that very much. That was not what my degree was studying in. Film specifically might on paper seem like it doesn't relate, but that's sort of what we're going to talk about. And I'm going to highlight about my personal experience is how my degree did help me in some ways to continue in higher education. After I graduated, I left the university for a while and then came back to work as the alternative media specialist with the AIM Center under Bob Murphy Access Center. Was there for a while and have since transitioned into my current position as an accommodations and retention counselor with the Bob Murphy Access Center. So my personal experience, as I was saying on paper, seems sort of all over the place, if that's kind of what you're thinking, especially as it relates to my degrees and the experience that I've had. But I've been able to use the skills that I've achieved not only in my degree, but also just through jobs to continue where I am now and what I want to do in the future. Okay, so adapting your skills. So we're talking about different ways we can apply what we have, what skills we have into different jobs. I just wanted to highlight what I would categorize my key skills as, not specific to any one job, but just very important things that I would like to mention if applying for a job, adding this to a resume, things that can be adapted and molded to any position that I might be interested in. So written and verbal communication skills, ability to counsel and interact with diverse community populations, ability to multitask with high attention to detail, to complete and manage a wide variety of tasks with overlapping deadlines and various objectives, to analyze complex situations accurately and effectively to determine effective action and planning, and ability to manage and support diverse and fruitful working relationships, and then knowledge of CSULB policy, working division of student affairs, and knowledge of sections 504 and 508 and 88A compliance in a general sense. So those are what I would say my key skills are. And then I would, on the next slide, show how to adapt these. So this is a pretty text-heavy slide, so don't worry too much about what it is. It is very repetitive, but in the sense I just would like to highlight the different ways that focusing not on key skills for a specific job, but rather my key skills overall and how can I apply that to each industry that I've worked in my past experience. So food service, I would highlight my communication skills and my ability to interact with diverse community populations and multitasking and managing tasks. In retail, you see a similar sort of list of experiences with verbal communication skills, diverse community populations, attention to detail, variety of tasks, and then also adding supporting working relationships, and even knowledge of ADA compliance and 504 compliance in a retail space, given that accessibility as an overall sense should always be advocated for and legally implemented in different work environments. And that's something that I would want to emphasize if even applying for a retail space, as it might give me some more appeal to employers, and isn't that knowledge that I have to represent the diverse community that they hope to maybe sell to in the retail space. Freelance opportunities as well, written communication skills, community populations, multitasking again, and then also the compliance with different 508, as I highlighted. If you're unsure with what section 504 and 508 of the Rehab Act is, it just refers to accessibility and non-discrimination for persons with disabilities. So that's something that I would highlight, even though it relates directly to my job as I have now. It's not something I would omit from mentioning if I were seeking more freelance opportunities for video editing as I have in the past, because it could emphasize that I can make an accessible product for a freelance opportunity where others maybe don't have that knowledge, or if they think that it might not be important to emphasize. In specialty assembly, this is probably what I would categorize as my oddest job. I was manufacturing, helping with manufacturing scales that measure high attention to liquids and details at a very microscopic level. So ended up in that very randomly, but my multitasking skills with high attention to detail definitely was emphasized to have that job in the sense that the very small, minute parts that I had to help assemble, and they had to be performed very accurately. Very complex situations there, and even compliance with ADA. Again, that one's popping up again and again, something that I would always emphasize and something that is important to mention. And then higher education, of course, listing all of my key skills there as it relates to higher education. As I hope to continue in higher education, I would emphasize all of that, and even in interviews, potentially mention different ways I've applied these skills in different elements: food service, retail, freelance, specialty assembly, all to just sort of highlight how you can adapt and morph your skills into the different jobs that you might be applying for or be seeking employment in, so that you can use everything that you have at your disposal to highlight your key strengths. Okay, so we're going to do an activity called Know Your Strengths. There'll be some prompts you want to think about. I'm good at, compliments I have received, challenges I have overcome, what I value most, and unique skills I possess. skills I have that will not help me in the workplace. So I want to highlight that last one to specifically, we can talk about if you have any really specific skills that you feel like you might not be able to adapt, you can share that with us now. And we can talk about potential ways you might be able to structure that for the employment that you're seeking. If anyone is not familiar with Mentimeter, it is an online sort of polling platform. So this should be available. I'll also paste the access in the chat here in just a second. And we'll share everyone's anonymous responses on screen in a second. So you can go to menti.com, MENTI, MENTI.com and enter the code 7565018 or scan the QR code on the screen here. And we'll be able to kind of view everyone's responses. Oh, I have that. You guys are quick, as we were saying before, 7 people already in the thing here. Here's the link in the chat. And I'll go ahead and share my screen so we can review everyone's responses. And if you didn't grab the QR code, it'll also be in the screen share here for just a moment. So get that going. Okay. So again, if you need it, menti.com, MENTI.com, enter the code 75650188. And I'll start reading some of the answers here. I'm good at mentoring and I have overcome public speaking in public. Comfortable using different types of technology. Those are some really great ones. Comfortable using different types of technology. We've touched on this before, tech savviness, especially as we kind of just move onward into the future. There's a bunch of different technologies that are implemented in different workplaces. And even if you're unsure of the specific technologies that a workplace or an employer might have, always good to emphasize what you can do with the technologies that you know. And it might apply. I'm good at writing, of course, communication on a daily basis with employers and colleagues. Very good there. I am friendly. I like that one too, because that's always important to emphasize. You have key workplace skills, but employers are also looking to have people in their environments and spaces that are pleasant to be around, kind of foster the community there. So even friendly is a great thing to mention. Thank you for sharing that. Good at time management, comfortable overseeing recreational activities. I'm good at active listening, critical and logical based thinking, all very good ones. Detail-oriented, creative, interdisciplinary, and empathetic. I can say I can't read that one, but I think it's empathetic with new technology, customer service skills, nonprofit experience. I'm good at working under pressure. I have been complimented on my work ethic. I have overcome many mental challenges as well as problems regarding problem solving. I value good work relationships. All of this very good ways that can be applied into workplace. And if for any reason you don't have access to the Mentimeter, you can always feel free to post it in the chat as well. So yeah, thanks everyone for sharing these. I will move on to the next one. You can continue to share in those as well if you want to, or post it in the chat. So this one's another poll. So I moved into a next one, and hopefully just after these prompts, these things that we've been talking about, you might feel that you've identified some skills that maybe you thought weren't transferable or couldn't apply to different workspaces. This is great. 3 responders so far. I have some transferable skills. 5 people saying all of my personal strengths and skills can apply to workplace environments. And 3, I have some transferable skills. All right, so we like to see that I don't have any transferable skills is at 0. If that is how you feel, you can also say that too, and we can talk about different ways you might want to apply your transferable skills. But this is all very great. So happy to see that at least everybody feels they have some transferable skills. And might feel more comfortable after today, highlighting things in job interviews and in workplace environments in which they felt they might not need to previously in different ways that adds to their strengths as a good candidate for employment. All right, and that's it for my piece.
All right, everybody give Austin a shout out in the chat or a reaction there. Thank you, Austin. All right, I'm going to go back to our presentation. And then we are now going to intro Jessica Wood.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for being here today. My name is Jessica Wood. I use she, her pronouns, and I am over at the Bob Murphy Access Center on campus. So a little bit about me. I am a Northern California transplant. So when I turned 18, I moved down to Long Beach to attend Cal State Long Beach, of course, and I have just since never left. I've really found my new home here. I think it's really important to note that when I came into this university as an undergrad, I actually didn't start as a philosophy major with a science emphasis. I actually started as a journalism major. During my first semester as a journalism major, I took one of the required classes for your general education, and one of those classes was an introduction to ethics class. I liked it so much that I changed my major after my first semester to philosophy. And I also really focused my coursework additionally on cell and molecular biology through the College of Natural Sciences and Mathematics. As you can probably tell, I was a little bit all over the place when I joined college. And I think that's something that's really important to note, is that we enter college, we enter university with the expectation that we know what we want to do. And I was very much a person who simply just didn't know what I wanted to do. And I found that out in my first semester, but luckily found my path. So I graduated with my BA in philosophy. And I also had over 60 units of upper division coursework, again, in that cell and molecular biology, because I found during my time on campus that I was really interested in the sciences and was interested in becoming a science teacher. So then when I graduated, kind of had that existential crisis that I'm sure many people can identify with, and decided to obtain my single subject teaching credential also at Cal State Long Beach in foundational science, and then concurrently completed my master's in education in secondary curriculum and instruction. So that is my educational background. Some jobs that I've previously held: I started out as a lifeguard as well as a swim instructor and pool manager growing up in Northern California. I have served as events profit sector in Orange County. I started at Long Beach State in my second semester as a student assistant at the Accessible Instructional Materials Center, so that same office sub-department of BMAC that Austin had previously worked with as well. I've been a restaurant server and a bartender for many, many, many years. I've worked at places like Bubba Gum Shrimp Company in Long Beach. I worked at the Attic for a really long time. Really actually enjoyed my experience as a server and bartender. I previously have held the role as the alternative media specialist over at the AIM Center prior to Austin's tenure in that role, and then was a middle school science and math teacher for a little while in Long Beach Unified School District. So for a little while, I was directly using my degree and my credential experience. And then I also have had some odd jobs as just like being a crafter and builder for friends and family for various things. I serve as a pet sitter for some of my friends and family when they're away. I've been a babysitter before, so I've held a lot of kind of odd jobs that are, quote, off payroll. And currently I serve as the associate director here at the Bob Murphy Access Center, overseeing the day-to-day operations of our center. So this is also a text heavy slide, and Amanda and Nakia, whoever's queuing these up, we can actually just queue these all up now. There should be six different. So I just wanted to highlight in this slide how many transferable skills one can have in any given position, regardless of how entry level it may seem, regardless of how maybe minute the skill itself may seem. We pick up a lot of transferable skills that we probably don't even realize until we're reflecting later on. So go ahead and take a look at this slide. And again, I apologize that it's very text heavy and very small. That's my bad. But go ahead and just take a look and see if you can find any common themes of transferable or portable skills across the various positions that I've held in my life. And feel free, if you notice what some of those are, feel free to just pop them into the chat. What are some of those skills that you're seeing showing up in multiple industries, multiple jobs that I've held? Go ahead and feel free to use the chat if you'd like. So we're seeing time management. Absolutely. That's something that's very relevant to you all as students, I would think. What I want to highlight here is that no matter where you are, no matter what you're doing, you're going to pick up a transferable skill. So in my time as a lifeguard, obviously observation and safety skills such as CPR and first aid are very, very relevant. That also applied directly into my experience as a science and math teacher. I had to be certified in CPR and first aid. I already had that background knowledge and then just needed to reinstate my certification. I hold that certification now as the associate director at BMAC in case of emergency. If we're looking over at my server and bartender experience, obviously customer service is going to be something that we think of right away. Problem solving. Maybe you've made a mistake on the job. Maybe you are interacting with a client that comes off as particularly difficult. How can you problem solve to serve that person timely and effectively? Resilience. Again, it's difficult to work in the service industry. If anybody has any experience in the service industry, you know what I'm talking about. It really requires you to develop some resilience. Event staff. As an event staff member, communication, something that's very big. Teamwork, we're putting on an event, it requires a team and we have to work together. The ability to multitask during events, so many things are happening all at once, so you need to be able to multitask. This applies to my lifeguard experience. This applies to my experience at the AIM Center. This applies to my current experience, my previous experience as a teacher. And then odd jobs, I want to highlight that one for a minute because I know some of you may be thinking, well, what's the importance of kind of cataloging my portable skills from my odd jobs? I was able to think of a few terms that didn't come up in some of my other jobs, such as like the use of tools or various utensils to perform a job or a function. And I'm just going to pop back over to the chat to see some of these themes that we're seeing. So time management, adaptability, communication, critical thinking and decision making, adaptability. Awesome. Thank you all for that feedback. Okay, so I am going to pop it on over to our Mentimeter activity. So if we can just have the next slide, thank you so much. So I have a different code than Austin had. So go ahead and pull out your devices if you'd like. If you don't have access to Menti, feel free to use the chat in Zoom, but go ahead and visit menti.com and enter the code 17436360, or you can scan that QR code. And we're going to do a word cloud. So here is the situation that I would like you to respond to using 1 to 2 words or a short phrase, keeping in mind that it's a word cloud. So too many words, it'll be difficult to read. Let's say that you have experience working as a restaurant server. What transferable skills could apply to your new position as a school teacher? And I'm going to go ahead and share my screen to show you all some of our word cloud results. Okay. Confirmation that my screen share is working okay from anybody in the group.
You are good, Jessica.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I never know, even after 3 years of Zoom. So you have experience working as a restaurant server. What transferable skills could apply to your new job as a teacher? Communicating with others. Absolutely. In the restaurant industry, you need to greet people. You need to work with your host to ensure that certain tables and spaces are available. You need to, of course, interact with your clients, with your patrons, and take their orders. You need to often read back their order or clarify their order to ensure it's correct. You then need to communicate with the kitchen and the support staff. So you need to input that order. So there's a lot of pieces related to communication that are very important in the serving industry that of course would apply in the school setting. So as a teacher, all day long, communicating information and content to students, right? You're communicating with your administration. You're working with parents to share about, students' progress. So lots of communication, absolutely. I'm seeing resilience. So I know I picked up on that a little bit earlier. So in serving, sometimes you can feel, like there's a lot of demands and maybe a little reward, right? Or little respect. So having that resilience to pick yourself back up by your bootstraps and keep on moving to provide a good service to people. Same thing with teaching. We know that teachers work very hard, and there are a lot of moving parts to a teaching position, whether you're in a traditional school setting or something maybe more alternative. So resilience is very important. I am seeing, let me try to pick out some that we haven't talked about yet. Friendliness is important, right? If I am a server and my main income is off tips, not only is it correct or right to be a friendly person, but my money making ability as a server requires me, to be friendly. You catch more flies with honey versus vinegar, right? So being friendly is important. Same thing as a teacher. You want to be able to build that rapport, build relationships with your students. So it's important to be friendly and approachable. Using technology. Absolutely. So in the restaurant industry, technology may look a little bit different than it does in a school setting, but you are working on what we call POS systems to input orders. That information gets communicated through a receipt feed in the kitchen. In teaching, as we all know, we're here on Zoom right now. Technology is very important. Students need to access technology systems, and teachers need to have a good grasp on how to use various technologies, whether it's software, hardware, or related programs. Working with families, I like this one. I haven't seen that one before. Working with families is important. That kind of ties into kind of that communication ability to be friendly, right? We're working with families, big parties often come into restaurants, and you're of course going to be working with families or support systems as a teacher. Cleaning skills. I like this one. See, there is no transferable skill that is too small. Obviously, in the restaurant setting, you need to pay keen attention to detail to sanitizing spaces and ensuring spaces are safe and clean for folks to safely consume their dishes. Same thing in the classroom. It is difficult to operate in a messy, dirty classroom. And that also ties into health and safety. So go ahead and put a few more things into the word cloud if you feel so inclined. I'm going to just highlight a couple more. I see patience is here. So it is important to have patience, and that can often tie into resilience. Maybe as a server, you're dealing with somebody who's maybe not in the best mood. We don't know what they've been through that day. So we want to be patient with them. Maybe the kitchen's backed up. We need to be patient with those people. In the classroom, maybe a student is having trouble grasping a concept. We need to be patient with them and meet them where they are. Maybe we are interacting with a family member who wants the best for their student. We need to be patient with them too. So thank you so much for adding to this word cloud here. What I'll make sure I do is I will take a screen grab of it. I'll let it go live for a little bit longer, but I'll take a screen grab so that way we can share it out. So my purpose today is just to share with you again that no transferable or portable skill is too small. And if you just kind of dump all of your skills onto a piece of paper or into a Word document, you will find that you have many, many skills that are marketable and of interest to potential employers. So consider including any and everything that you can think of, and tie back to Rosa's portion of the presentation, where when you identify a specific skill or duty, how can you communicate that in writing on your resume, in your application, or verbally during your interview? And that's all I have for my portion. Thank you all so much.
Wonderful. Let's go ahead and give Jessica a shout out and or a reaction chat, please. Thank you. All right, back to our presentation. Oops. I knew that was going to happen. So this is our Q&A portion. And basically, if you have any questions, please put them in the chat, just because that's going to be the easiest to manage. We did have one. I'm going to recopy and paste it and throw it for visibility. Okay, great. And then I know, Rosa, you just teamed me one. So, oh wait, no, it's the same one. Okay, she didn't answer for that one. So the question is, on an application portal that has a section for us to input our skills, it requires a number of years and months of experience and the level, beginner, intermediate, expert. Any advice on what to do with that situation? Rosa, you are more than welcome to speak about it or copy and paste what you said in the chat, whatever you would like to do.
I did copy and paste it, but so the easiest way to do it is to literally have a Word doc and separate your soft skills and your hard skills. So let's say, for example, hard skills are things like software, languages, so like C++, speaking Spanish, or Farsi, teamwork, collaboration. And what you want to do is kind of like look at your resume and think, where have I used these skills? And because your resume already has a timestamp, because you should have like your title, the company, and the date range, that's how you can calculate the number of years. So I think that's just it's very specific. Not all applications will ask of this. So for the person that asked, I also put in the part of my answer to, you can always email me. And if you want to set up an appointment and kind of go over specifically maybe what that application is asking. This is a more general answer that I can give, but hopefully that answers your question. If not, please feel free to respond on the chat, and I can like answer from there.
Great. And Jessica and Austin, if you have anything to input as well, please feel free. I'm actually asked both of you to start your video. And of course, anybody in attendance, if you have any more questions, please, this is the moment to ask them. Great. And that is fine if you learned everything you need to learn. But if you think of something later on, you are more than welcome to, again, add it to the chat here. Oh, excellent. Or ask us later on. I have a hard time putting the skills directly in the bullet points of a resume. Is it better to have a skills section?
So, and this will probably go more into the applicant tracking system. Most companies will have a software that reads your resume. And so basically the software is looking for those skills, whatever is the text of the job or internship description, to be present on your resume. So to answer your question, I would say you want to put it in two places. You want to put it definitely in the skill section. If it's a hard skill like languages, software, if you're in the sciences, it would be equipment. I've also seen specific skills that are particular to an industry, like, for example, if you're going into the hospitality hotel industry, like check-in, front desk, skill sets like that, I will see in a skills section to pick up key terms. But for the majority of the part, if you're using things like communication, teamwork skills, you need to kind of make sure that you ground it with an example, and that has to be in your bullet points. So if you're having trouble kind of adding that onto your bullet points, that's something that we can help in the Career Development Center. And we can definitely go through and see what you have written and kind of give some suggestions. The simple place you could kind of do it, or the way you can do it, is just simply using the term that they're using. So they're saying communication, use the term communication, replace it with maybe a phrase that you said, spoken with, like replace it with communication. So it could be like a simple flip. But I would recommend like a 30-minute resume cover letter appointment with us through Beach Connect, or if you're an alumni, you can definitely still have access to us 1 year for free after your graduation date. So you can call our office and they can book that over here with us. And then for alumni outside of that 1 year, you can always do our subscription and also request an appointment so we can help you with learning that skill. Yeah.
Thank you, Rosa. And if Austin or Jessica have anything to add, you can either put it in the chat or speak.
Hi, everyone. So this may be less so focused on transferable or portable skills, but just some general resume building suggestions that I have found have worked well in my experience is depending on the industry or the job that you're applying for, you may consider ensuring that your resume is written to be more results oriented or results based with statements like that. So for instance, I'm the associate director at BMAC, right? So it may be more effective if I'm applying to jobs in the future, instead of me saying, provide accommodation services to students with disabilities, I would say something like provided accommodation services to over 2,300 students registered with disabilities, to provide specific data, specific numerical information or results-based information that really is specific and shows that prospective employer specifically what you've done with those duties or those skills. So that's something that I always recommend to people. And I love talking about resumes. So even though I'm not technically with the Career Development Center, please feel free to contact me at any time. I love this stuff.
And I personally will throw in as well with that, basically, like, say you're like, I don't know, I never counted 2,500 people, in your job, creating a note system for yourself, writing that down. Oh, today I did this many things, or today I worked with this many people. And then all of a sudden, if you do that, like even jotting it down real quick in like a notebook, and then you can refer to it, then you'll have all your data at the end. And that can go for resume as well. You update your resume as you go. Wow, believe it or not, we are at 158. If there are any more questions, you are more than welcome to put them in the chat. I was going to say, please add one takeaway or something you learned. You still can do that, and you still can put a question if you would like. We like to see, it's kind of like a survey in a way. And then while that's going, I do have a resources page I will be sending everybody. This will be in the PDF. They are clickable links. Career Development, BMAC, our YouTube channel, the University Writing Center, which sometimes, you come here and you get your resume developed, and then maybe you need some help with like just words and things like that. They can help you as well. The link to the book, the link to Atomic Habits, more links as well. NACE, Transferable Skills, Disability Inclusion blog. I added Word Hippo, which is my favorite. It is an online thesaurus that is really comprehensible. And then with that, these are our upcoming workshops and fairs. On my left-hand side is everything the CDC is doing. On the right-hand side is everything BMAC is doing. Thank you, chat. And I did get a note that someone did not capture, and I'm so sorry, I'm going to do this real quick, I apologize, did not capture the classroom requirement. So I'm going to go to that really quick, and I'm probably a better way to do this, but I am just going to arrow. There we go. Again, this is great. Thank you so much. I do have a question in the chat. How do you recommend integrating transferable skills in the interview process? And I will add that in the chat. And if you have to go, that's understandable. But if you can stay for a few minutes, that's fine. And then for this question, how do you recommend integrating transferable skills in the interview process? Please feel free, Rosa, Jessica, or Austin, to jump in with that. And if you need to go, that is fine. We will stay for about 5 minutes.
I'll jump in. So one of the best ways to kind of even start integrating it is, and I know it's like a shameless plug, but coming to the Career Development Center, because we do mock interviews. And with the mock interviews, we do interview coaching where we go through behavioral interview questions where we talk about strengths and weaknesses, that question, which is where you can talk about a transferable skill. We also practice like industry specific questions where you may have to talk about a transferable skill there. So great questions to practice would be like the tell me about yourself question. So that way you can kind of sprinkle that in and listing the transferable skill. Also thinking about your strengths question, like maybe it is a transferable skill that you have. Thinking about scenario questions where maybe they're asking you to talk about a time where you had to problem solve, you had to be a team player, where you had to plan and organize yourself, where you had to communicate with others. So a lot of these behavioral questions are centered around a lot of these transferable skills. So for more examples of behavioral questions and to practice those, To really target those transferable skills, I would visit our website, which is linked in the PowerPoint, and also just booking an appointment with us so you can feel more comfortable talking about those transferable skills and even brainstorming what skills you want to bring into the forefront when you get into that interview process.
Shameless plug there. CDC also does strengths assessments, which we have done as well, and they're awesome. And that helped make me feel better about my own transferable skills as well. Cool. If you need to go, that is fine. We were so happy to present this to you. We were so happy to support everybody. And I love hearing what you guys learned. If you need to go, that's fine, but we will be here till 2:05. Great, thanks for the love.
Nikki, I think I have just a quick thought to share, because that's a really good question. And how do you share, especially if you haven't been given the opportunity in an interview to talk about skills that aren't specifically related to the job that you're applying, there will often be an opportunity to respond to a question such as what makes you the best fit for this position, or different questions like that. Even if it's a little bit like, what questions do you have for us? Anytime that there's an open-ended question, even if it's not a direct response to the question, these are generally good opportunities to talk about skills you feel that you have that would apply, such as I've never worked in digital accessibility before, but I'm very tech savvy. I've worked in these seemingly maybe unrelated programs, but they can show that I can be very efficient with technology. And I feel that I'm adaptable in that way and can learn any programs quickly. So these sort of responses. So because a lot of times interviews are structured for the specific position that you're applying for, but any open-ended opportunity, feel free to jump in with something that seems unrelated, but that you can still kind of structure to show that you are a good candidate for the position.
Thank you, Austin. And again, I see that we have a couple of people still here, and that's fine. We will be here till 2:05 if you have any more questions. Thank you. You have a good day as well. And again, I will be emailing everybody all this information. Okay, that is in conclusion of our transferable skills workshop. Thank you, everybody.
I can unmute now. Yay.